This is something I hate when people do, and I've done it myself. Why did I say that? Come on, Jakub. Hello and welcome back to my channel where I talk about Japan and the JET program, so if either of those things interest you, then be sure to subscribe. Every year people applying to the JET program send me drafts of their statement of purpose to review and give some of my personal feedback on. I even did that myself back in the day when I was applying and sent my draft to a ALT YouTuber at that time. So recently I dug out that old email from, oh my goodness, 2017 that had my original statement of purpose draft, so I thought it would be interesting to go through my old draft and give myself feedback in the same way I would give feedback to anyone who sends me their draft these days. And then at the end, what I'm going to do is apply that feedback to my draft and rewrite my statement of purpose into a kind of ideal version as far as I can see it. If you watch this video and decide that you also want personal feedback from me on a draft of your statement of purpose, then you can get that. There's a link in the description to my Patreon page where you can do that as well as get access to a bunch of other bonus content. But let's get into it, and while you're watching this, if you have any of your own feedback, then comment that below and don't hold back because it's just helpful for everyone. So you can be savage if you want, what would you have done differently? Comment it below. Okay, let's take a look. So the first thing I do when I give feedback to people is I look at the requirements for that country's application, because it does vary from country to country what they ask you to include in the statement of purpose. So for me, obviously, that's the UK. Personal statement should be an essay format and answer the following questions. Why do you wish to participate on the UK JET program, and what can you contribute to your host community? If you have any experience of living abroad for an extended period, what aspect did you find the most difficult to adapt to? Was there any specific problem you had to overcome? Or, and then there's another one, but I do have experience abroad, so I'm going to follow that one. And third, teaching ideas. If you have some teaching experience, what methods of teaching, classroom approaches, etc. have you used? Which have you found the most valuable? There's also another one again for if you don't have teaching experience, but I twisted something I had into teaching experience, so we're going to stick with that. So let's start with my introduction. I chose to study Digital Media Global at university with a focus on video production. Okay, stop. Right from the first line, why did I start that way? I always tell people you don't have to go into all of the details of stuff which are going to be in the main application anyway. You don't need to specify your course, your university, things like that. And also the very first sentence is just my study experience. No, your introduction is a good opportunity to showcase your passion. What is your unique selling point? Why are you so excited about coming to Japan? That should be an impactful start right from the beginning. So I definitely need to change that, but let's continue. This allowed me to utilize my biggest passion in life, storytelling. I love sharing my experiences with others through video as well as other means. I chose the global version of my degree so I could have the opportunity to study overseas. Each culture has its own stories to tell, which is why Japan, with such a rich and unique culture, fascinates me so much. This brings me to my application for JET as I look to share stories from my home in Scotland with the people of Japan and create new experiences to bring home and share with the people of Scotland. It is through this form of internationalization that I believe I am an ideal candidate for JET. Okay, let's just go through this. Throughout the whole essay, my kind of unique selling point that I was going for is a combination of my passion for storytelling with my skills in video and how I can combine the two for both motivation and the know-how to share Japanese culture. So I should have started really with, I was able to explore my passion of storytelling through university. Something like that, rather than this is the course I studied, this was what I focused on in my course. That's just boring details. Don't worry about loads of specific examples. It's just an introduction. Some of the introductions I read seem like the introductions of novels. You don't have to set the scene. You don't have to say, oh, it was a cold winter's night when I was perusing YouTube before bed and I came across blah blah blah. I felt blah blah blah. No, this is not a novel. This is a formal piece of writing and you should treat it as such. At the end there I said, I believe I am an ideal candidate for JET. Do not be afraid to talk yourself up. You want to sell yourself, and that's something I wasn't comfortable with at the time, so I really had to force myself to be like, no, I'm good at this, I can do this, and so on. Overall though, I'd say it's a pretty solid introduction, just didn't like the beginning very much. Okay, so next we have, I went to Germany for the time abroad in my degree. Okay, so I don't know why I've skipped ahead to question 2, because I know that there's more that answers question 1. I'm now talking about being abroad, so I think this maybe needs a little bit of rearranging, maybe paragraph-wise. But let's continue. I went to Germany for the time abroad in my degree. This experience helped me prove to myself that I can adapt to new environments with ease. Over time, I learned the balance of fitting in with German culture while keeping my own Scottish way of life present. Events during the exchange like Culture Day helped me achieve this. Giving international students a platform to present aspects of their home countries helped me see the value of spreading cultures. This is where the goals of the JET program overlap with my own beliefs. Okay, this is an okay paragraph, I would say. It's concise and to the point, but there's not really very specific examples. I say that events like Culture Day helped me achieve this, but like, how? I mentioned that I had to learn to balance German culture. What is German culture? What was something I struggled with? I don't know. Not from this anyway. What's an aspect of Scottish culture that I presented that I mentioned but don't specify? You don't want to write stuff which is just kind of generic and sounds like it's well intended but has no weight to it. These examples give weight to the paragraph, I think. But it does connect back to the goals of the JET program at the end, which I think is always good. I think everything can be connected back to the goals of the JET program. Also, this doesn't really answer the question. The question was specifically asking what aspect did I find the most difficult to adapt to? And I just said German culture. That's not really an aspect, that's the whole thing. And then it said, did you have any specific problem? Nothing specific in this paragraph. Honestly, this might be my weakest paragraph, because if you read your paragraph and you can't super easily see the answer to the question, it's not good enough. So yeah, I need to add specific examples to this and maybe put it later in the essay. Let's move on. I have very clear goals for my time on the program. I want to bring the experience of Scottish life to the young people of Japan. I want to share my stories and ultimately encourage Japanese students to create their own, come to Scotland, share their culture, and promote this powerful idea of internationalization with others. This is certainly what I plan to do when my time in Japan is over. I want to share the knowledge I gain during my time as an ALT with the people of Scotland. Okay, so now we're going back to answering the first question of why do you want to participate and what can you contribute? And this is kind of split into 2 paragraphs for me. So that was the first one and it was bad. It's so general, vague, repetitive, listing things. I want to bring the experience of Scottish life to the young people of Japan. Like what? How? That is the whole point of the program. I want to share my stories and ultimately encourage Japanese students too. And then I just gave a huge ass list of generic keywords. But again, there's no examples, there's no weight to this. Anybody could say that, just switch out Scotland with their own country. There's nothing unique about this paragraph at all. That's the thing, if you look at a paragraph and you think you could take this, copy and paste it into anyone else's statement of purpose and it still works, it's too generic, man. There's not enough details, there's not enough about you. Like, come on. The second paragraph was better of these 2. So let's look at that now. Using my skills as a videographer, I want to spread Japanese culture not only to the people I know personally in Scotland, but to a wider audience. This is something I have already started in whatever way I can. I volunteered in September to create a video for Japan Fair Glasgow 2017, a culture day helping raise money for those affected by the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami in 2011. Going through JET will also allow me to tell stories from a completely different cultural perspective and help represent the country of Japan accurately going forward. With JET's goals in mind, it is this potential to reach so many people that I can contribute to the program. So this focuses entirely on my unique selling point. I make video content, that was my job, then my work experience before this, and so I can share with not just my friends and family, but to a whole audience, to the internet, to the world. And I have specific examples which I can show to back that up. This isn't just, oh yeah, I'll come to Japan and maybe I'll start a YouTube channel, because a lot of people do that, or a lot of people say they're going to do that. You know, if you haven't been doing YouTube already, it's kind of hard to back that up. It sounds maybe a little generic, but luckily for me, I did work as a videographer, so I did have experience I could use. And I actually only volunteered for that event so that I would have something like that to talk about here. So you need to be always on the lookout for things you can volunteer for or get involved with in any way to start building up an arsenal of stuff that you can talk about. There's also not too much detail, which some people do when they give examples. Any details you give need to be just details which are relevant to make your point. So if I'd started to say that I'd volunteered to make this video for Japan Fair Glasgow 2017, I was there all day capturing all the different stalls and making sure every event was captured and blah blah blah, like, I don't need to write a job description. That's not important. But let's move on for now though and look at my teaching ideas section. Although my teaching experience is limited, I'm sorry, I needed a moment to compose myself. This is something I hate when people do, and I've done it myself. Although my teaching experience is limited. Why did I say that? Why say anything negative at all? Don't draw attention to your weaknesses. Come on, Jakub. It's all about wording. Yes, my teaching experience was limited, and I'm not gonna lie, but I can frame it in a much better way. I can say, from my teaching experience, I don't need to specify how much there was. Like, oh my god. Anyway, let's continue. Although my teaching experience is limited from my time as a student demonstrator, I learned a vast amount about teaching while realizing that working with young people is something I love and get a lot of value from. For a few weeks a year, I was asked to run a video editing workshop at my university to groups of high school children interested in the course. The fact I was asked to do this year after year shows that I am capable of teaching young people and gave me the opportunity to develop teaching techniques. There are two key elements to teaching that I gathered from this experience. And then I do small mini paragraphs for each of those two teaching elements I talked about. And I think it's okay to break up paragraphs that would otherwise be giant. If I just did one teaching paragraph, it would be the majority of a page. And we don't want that, because that's just not a good look, in my opinion. But if you're struggling for space, then, you know, I could easily cut stuff down from these paragraphs and condense it into one or maybe two. But I had the space, the word count available to me, so I, you know, took my time with it and I made each point more clearly. And I think it's okay either way, to be honest. Just try to avoid like mega long paragraphs. Apart from the immediate mistake at the beginning, I think there's maybe a bit too much unnecessary detail. This is what I was talking about before, like you don't need to give a job description. I guess I just wanted to mention that I specifically worked with high school kids since I was applying to work with high school kids, but I'm already said young people. I don't know why I had to say I was asked to run a video editing workshop. Like, it's not what I was teaching was irrelevant. Maybe if I was teaching a language, that would be more relevant and I could say that and I can talk about specifically language teaching techniques, but that was not the case. Okay, so I really like the next two paragraphs. They might be my best ones. They're very clear and straight to the point. They answer the question, which in this case was, what methods of teaching have you used and what have you found the most valuable? So I imply in these paragraphs that I use these and this is what I found the most valuable. The most important aspect of teaching is engagement, making sure that everyone is involved, everyone is talking, everyone is taking part. I find that identifying those who are the least interested and not paying much attention is key. Asking them questions or just talking to them directly keeps them involved and focused and is the best way to keep them engaged. Getting the students doing and practicing in class rather than just listening is the best way to keep them enthusiastic enthusiastic. Enthusiasm is another vital aspect of teaching. This I found not only from my experience teaching, but also my experience learning. From my own time in high school, I most clearly remember classes with enthusiastic teachers. These were also the classes I did best in. I believe this kind of positive attitude from a teacher is reflected in the students. It goes back to engagement and keeping the students interested and excited about what they are being taught. This is the attitude I try to maintain in all aspects of life, positive and passionate, whether I am telling a story or explaining to someone how they can improve. So I really like at the end there how I linked it back to storytelling, because it's kind of like, oh, I talked about how I'll do storytelling in Japan, and this is also a part of that. So just a nice little connection there. I think if you have that unique selling point or something you talk about in your introduction, it's nice to kind of pepper out throughout the essay something that links everything together nicely and kind of comes full circle at the end. That's just my personal opinion, like that's my style, I guess. The only thing I'd say is I didn't really give any specific examples from my time teaching, but it's almost as if each paragraph itself was an example, because I'm just talking about the teaching aspects that I found useful from that experience. A few different ways you could go about that depending on your available word count, but I kind of like this as it is. And then the next paragraph is still kind of teaching related. This is like the conclusion to the teaching section because I split it all up. Seeing the young people in the workshops I ran learn and improve was extremely rewarding and valuable. Being able to inspire and encourage these students was incredible, and this is something that excites me about JET. I want to inspire the young people of Japan not only to learn English, but to become more involved with another way of life. Equally, learning about Japan from my students and the people I will meet, bringing that home is something that can benefit so many people. This is what the JET program is all about. I think if this had been a standalone paragraph, I would have had a lot of negative stuff to say about it, because again, it's very generic, lots of keywords with not much weight behind it, if it had been standalone. But as a kind of conclusion to the teaching section, it's just kind of summarizing that, so I think it's okay, and then we have my conclusion, which I personally really like. So let's look at that. I strongly believe I am an ideal candidate for the JET program. I have shown in the statement of purpose how my personal goals match with those of the program to promote internationalization between Japan and other countries. I have demonstrated how my skills as a videographer and storyteller will help me to achieve these goals. Part of what got me interested in immersing myself in Japanese culture were videos I watched created by current JETs. I want to inspire others in the same way using my own skill set. Achieving this will benefit both Scotland and Japan by creating common understanding between both cultures. I will continue to do everything I can to prepare myself for the experience as I look forward to what comes next in my story. A little bit of a cheesy ending, but I'm a big fan of the cheese. I opened with storytelling and I finished with storytelling. What's going to come next in my story? What's the next chapter in my life journey, whatever. Also in my introduction I said I believe that I'm the ideal candidate for JET, and then I started the conclusion with basically the same thing, like, see? Told you, look at everything I just wrote. I am the ideal candidate for JET, and just lots of little parallels to the beginning and end, which I kind of really like. But yeah, very clearly summarizes what I talked about, uses some keywords and stuff. Again, this isn't a main paragraph, I don't need to get specific. And there's also a short mention of how I plan on continuing to promote the goals of the JET program beyond JET, which isn't one of the questions. They're not specifically asking about that, so you don't have to, dedicate a whole paragraph to it, or I wouldn't in this case. So just a short mention's okay, I think. As well as making it neat and full circle and stuff, I finish with talking about the goals of the JET program. That's what you want them to be left with thinking, because all they care about is how you can benefit them. They don't really care ultimately what you want to get out of JET. It's the other way around. Okay, that's quite a lot of feedback. So yeah, anyone who sends me their statement of purpose draft, you'll likely get similar feedback in an email form. Like, often my feedback ends up being as long as the bloody speech. So final advice to myself: reorder it to fit the order of the question, so it's just structured more clearly. Cut down a bit on the generic paragraphs and then expand a lot more on my time abroad. And then be sure to answer the questions about my time abroad. And don't draw attention to negatives. Okay. A lot of the feedback I gave myself in this video is actually very similar to comments I make to people who send me their drafts again and again and again. So do keep those points in mind when you write your draft. drafts, and do check out the link in the description for you to get personal feedback from me on your statement of purpose draft. Becoming a patron also offers a lot of behind the scenes content, access to my original lesson plans and materials which I use, daily updates from school, things like that. And come the second round of the JET applications, I also offer mock JET program interviews via Zoom, which are actually personalized to your applications. So that's fun. I had maybe about 10 of them last year. They were super great. I got a lot of positive feedback on those. So yeah, you can check that all out. But if you found this video helpful to you, then please do click that like button. I really do appreciate it. If you want more advice for the JET program, then be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a video. But for now, that's everything. So thank you very much as always, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!